Before I start this video, I just want to thank everyone for supporting the channel. Over the last 2 weeks, this channel has seen so much growth, and it would just not be possible without you guys. I didn't think it would be possible, but yet here we are, over 300 subscribers. Now, this video was supposed to come out a week ago, but because I've had a lot of schoolwork recently, it's been delayed, so sorry about that. Just, yeah, thank you all so much, and let's get on with the video. Pokémon X and Y, the first games in the 6th generation of Pokémon. The Pokémon Company's first step into 3D storytelling. Was it a good decision? That's debatable, but also not the topic of today's video. Today's video is instead going to be covering Pokémon X and Y and how the Kalos region represents the glorious country of France. Due to my heritage and my long history with this generation, Pokémon X and Y are games I look back on with relative fondness, even if they weren't really my first Pokémon games, that would instead go to a copy of Alpha Sapphire for the Nintendo 3DS. But I did play Pokémon Y a few times at least, and the setting really stuck with me. Something about rollerblading through the streets of Lumiose City, or getting lost while trying to get to Pokemon Village for that one damn Ditto. Pokemon Y was one of my favorite games when it came to the setting of the story. A few years after my first playthrough, I learned that this game's region was supposed to be based off of France, and my nationalistic pride just kicked in and made me love these games even more. Although to this day, I still don't understand how I didn't figure out it was based on France. There's a whole route called Menhir Trail. Now that I've grown up and have slightly matured, I can see that the Kalos region is centered around the aspects of beauty. And I find that really interesting because of the fact that it's based on France. So this video will try to connect the dots between beauty, Kalos, and the country of France in real life. Keep in mind that this video will mostly focus on the design aspects of Gen 6 and not the lore itself, so if you were expecting yet another video essay talking about why the story in these games is very lackluster and could easily be improved on, sorry to disappoint. Also, it is important to note that I am not an art or architecture student, so sorry if you were expecting some high quality, high detailed analysis about why this tile is green. As previously mentioned, these games take place in the Kalos region, a region based off of northern France, with the exception of Cloud City, which is based on Lyon, according to my own knowledge. Northern France is home to beautiful scenery, like Paris, the Mont Saint-Michel, a fortified city in the middle of the bay, Paris, the Alsace region, Paris, you get the idea. Even if we don't have the wonderful city of Marseille, we still have a lot to work with, so we're not taking any points away from the Pokémon Company right now. An important fact about every Pokemon region is that it has a general theme that is seen in the architecture of certain buildings, characters, story, etc. For example, Johto is all about history, Hoenn is centered around nature, Unova is about the average day in New York, and Kalos' main gimmick is beauty. Something very fitting considering it's based on France, a country normally known for its elegance, class, fashion brands, and the character Frenchie from The Boys. This representation of beauty comes in spades when it comes to these games, as something we discover almost right away when we arrive in Santalune City for the first time. That's right, this is the first time where we can actually customize our trainer character. Although if you want to play for customizability, I'd recommend playing as the female protagonist because wow, she has a lot more option when it comes to hairstyle and clothing. Is the Pokémon Company perhaps providing certain commentary on how women should be more attracted to clothing and vanity in general, while men should instead go down to the mine enforcing these gender roles? Maybe. Probably not, but who knows. But yes, this generation introduced character customization, giving more diversity with skin tones and clothing colors, so thank you for that, Pokemon. Now, the clothes can be bought in shops all around the region, and the system created works relatively well, as every store has different clothes depending on the day of the week, giving a more dynamic feeling to the world of Kalos. Now, having shops is nice and all, and it would be perfectly fine on its own. But here, Pokemon took it a step further. They gave us a Louis Vuitton boutique that can be only entered if you have enough swag points. Now this is amazing. Having a shop only available to people with enough drip located in the Pokemon equivalent of Paris is one of the most realistic representations of a high-fashion, sneakerhead Gucci gang culture, as everything in the shop is beautiful. This is probably the best shop in Kalos as it's the only one with more than one room, and the way you enter it is by working minimum wage jobs at a hotel for college credit or something like that. Keep in mind this is the only time in these games that you can work a job, and it's weird that the only time you can do it is to be accepted into the elite upper class of northern Lumiose City. This is great as it reflects on the real life Gucci gang culture where people who don't always necessarily make enough income to live really well until the end of the month end up spending large sums of money on vanity. Now, the Lumiose boutique is insane when it comes to price. It is much more expensive than every other clothes shop, and the only reason you buy them is probably just to flex on your friends because you got enough swag. And that's kind of the same thing in real life. You buy the Gucci shoes just to show your friends you have the Gucci shoes. You could get better shoes, but it's Gucci. You want the Gucci. This is probably present in a lot of countries nowadays, but it is particularly prevalent in France, where people want to represent their favorite brands. Whether it be via bootleg shoes or sweatpants, people want to be seen as cool and end up making awful decisions, such as working high-risk job for that sweet, sweet Versace hair dye. But this isn't the only thing X and Y provides when it comes to fashion in the games, as the whole evil team in these games is centered around dressing in red to eliminate dripless people from the planet. Sure, when it comes to an evil team motivation, this one is pretty bad compared to some kind of mafia organization, although in the grand scheme of Pokemon, there have been evil teams with arguably worse motivations, so I won't give them too much shit here. Probably because they deserve their own separate video. But anyways, Team Flare is the evil team of Pokemon X and Y, and their whole goal is to make the world beautiful. How they want to go about this, you may ask? Oh, just blow up the planet, because it would not be an adventure fit for a young adult if the whole world wasn't at stake here. Now, how does this fit with France? I guess it could link back to how both world wars took place mostly in northern France, which is somewhat reflected in the Pokemon War that happened a few thousand years ago, which prompted the use of AZ's weapon. Although to my limited knowledge, no nuclear bombs were dropped on France, unless you maybe look at Marseille, in which case, who knows, that might have happened. So yeah, Drip and Paris are very big, and there's an even bigger feature that I have to point out soon, but first, let's look at Diantha. You know, the champion? Yeah, she appears like twice, but notice how her whole thing is that she's a big shot movie star who I think is supposed to be based off Audrey Hepburn for some reason. Well, that once again just solidifies Callus's love for fashion. Most of the time, the champions have had very close relationships with their regions. Cynthia is fascinated by the myths of Sinnoh, Steven and or Wallace know a lot about the Weather Trio and have relationships to Hoenn which go back many generations, and Alder or Iris are just your typical New Yorkers. Diantha is the embodiment of all you see in those perfume ads. She dresses exclusively in white, giving the idea that she's pure. She dresses like a literal princess, and has this Mega Gardevoir, which makes an already feminine Pokemon even more feminine. Now yes, this only shows the women's side of beauty when it comes to unhealthy beauty standards, and you could be asking yourself, but what about man? And to this I say, look at this twink. That is my psychoanalysis. Look at Professor Sycamore, and compare him to someone like Professor Birch. I know beauty is subjective, but just look at the two of them side by side, and compare the looks. Are you done admiring this man? Good. Now it's time for my favorite part, the introduction of the fairy type. Picture this. For more than 15 years now, Pokemon has been making games with the exact same formula, 17 types. Some are definitely more viable than others, but overall there's a decent balance. You're kinda tired of seeing the Dragon type being so good. Clear's Kingdra is way too powerful for its own good, but what's this? A new type is being introduced? Being able to fight back against the fearsome Dragon types and Sableye? That's right. Pokemon X and Y introduced the Fairy type, a type made for all enjoyers of pink that's so powerful to the point that the TCG doesn't even want to acknowledge it anymore. So the Fairy type was introduced, and while yeah, you could just see it as some cutesy bulgy type of Pokemon, I believe that it also tried to loosely connect to the themes of beauty established in the game. Consider Valerie, the fairy type gym leader, whose whole gimmick is her fashion sense, and while yes, her design is more focused on the cuteness rather than elegance, she still fits a lot of beauty standards when it comes to women, despite her very large, very creepy eyes. With the moves themselves, the existence of certain attacks like Moonblast or Dazzling Gleam, paired with the fact that some fairy types are generally designed to be more feminine, I'd say that the fairy type is centered around the concept of beauty. Just look at some of these Pokemon. You can see the feminine features, you can see the eyes, you can see the long hair, which traditionally fits women. I'm not trying to say that all women only have long hair, or just clothes meant to be worn by women traditionally. I'm not saying that you can't wear a dress if you're a guy. But yes, most of these Pokemon fit into the, I guess, traditional aspect of beauty and what it means to be beautiful. Which is weird considering Pokemon are just glorified animals. Which then leads to some, frankly, not hilarious hijinks. Now there were a few other things added to this game like Mega Evolution, but that's just like taking a Pokemon, adding a few more spikes or making it bigger or something, and they don't really carry a lot of importance when you talk about beauty or France. Unless you're talking about Diancie, but Diancie wasn't made to be available for everyone, so I won't spend too much time talking about her. Finally, we have the extravagance of Kalos itself. I've previously mentioned how the champion Diantha is just every unrealistic beauty standard mashed into one body, but the region's sights and Miner's character also add to this general concept of beauty. Think back to Parfum Palace, the stand-in for the real-life Versailles Palace, a place in which you have to chase down a dog so that he can be returned to his owner who will give you a Poké Flute so you can wake up a Snorlax. This game also repeats a lot of story beats from the first generation, maybe trying to reflect on how France is late to everything. When you look at what's popular with French teenagers these days, it's kind of similar to looking at, I guess, American teenagers back in the 1980s or 1990s. Just showing how France is very late. And even if the first generations of games were based on Japan, it doesn't really change much. So you find the dog inside these gigantic gardens who really don't serve a practical purpose, just like the ones in the Versailles Palace. And once again, this takes us back to the idea of vanity, especially in palaces, because a lot of time is just to flex the amount of wealth they have. This is made even worse when the owner of the dog finally sees him again, and he launches fireworks to celebrate their reunion. Sure, it may be beautiful, but ultimately it's useless. Small moments like these really hammer in the fact that beautiful things, while beautiful to the eyes, only serve that purpose, to appeal to the eyes, and are just ultimately practically useless. So to base a game setting on France, a place often associated with beauty, feminine elegance, etc., and to make the whole conflict about what it would cost to make a beautiful world despite its ultimate flaws, is something I love. Yes, the story is a dumpster fire. Yes, a lot of trainers weren't memorable. Yes, from a gameplay perspective, they weren't different from any other mainline games, but ultimately, I believe X and Y successfully managed to present France and its flaws, culturally speaking, while keeping it child-friendly, completely justifying its choices as to why France should be chosen for a Pokémon mainline game. Just once again, I want to reiterate, thank you so much for the support. I didn't expect to get this far. This video was supposed to come out a week ago, but due to me being busy, it came out today instead, so hopefully you're still able to enjoy it as much. I have 2 more videos in the works right now. I haven't recorded any of them, but hopefully they can come out, or at least one of them can come out before the 26th, because that's the 10-year anniversary of this channel's creation. So yeah, that's planned. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe for more life-changing content, and goodbye.